So welcome, Richard. Thank you for coming to chat. Just want to hear a little bit about your journey through life in the woodworking industry. So where did it all start? How did you get into this industry?
Well, I suppose it really started about 15 years ago when I started work with Sunseeker, which is a yacht manufacturer on the south coast, as a production manager. I was employed not because I had a woodworking knowledge, because I didn't, but because of my manufacturing skills, because I've always been in manufacturing management, learning about how to make them more efficient by introducing processes and systems, etc., etc. So I found myself employed as a production manager by Sunseeker for that reason, but I quickly got bitten by the furniture bug because they make a great product, but within that product, the yacht, there's lots of fabulous furniture, bespoke furniture, lots of upholstered bits and pieces, and the general interiors themselves. It's just so beautiful that I absolutely fell in the woodworking industry, fell in love with it. And then from then on, I worked for a couple of furniture companies and kitchen company where I learned more and more about woodworking. And I put together the nuances of woodworking with my skills of manufacturing to create what I find is a very powerful solution to help people who want to improve their woodworking businesses. And let's be honest, when you look at the products some of these guys produce, some of the furniture, these top-notch kitchens, interiors, why wouldn't you want to work in that industry? It's fabulous. Amazing.
And so you said you worked in manufacturing before that.
Yeah.
What sort of manufacturing was?
Well, I started off way back in the day with Plessey Electronics, who at the time, they were doing a massive project for the MOD called Ptarmigan. And I just applied for a job as a production controller. I wasn't doing much with my life. Thought they're a good company, they're a good name. But the great thing about Plessey, when they teach you something, they teach you the right way.
Right.
And they taught me how to put processes together. They taught me about systems. I was part of the MRP implementation team. So I learnt all those basics in a manufacturing environment by a company who could afford to throw money at it and get the very best. And even these days, all those years ago, I sometimes think, how would I have done that at Plessey? How would Plessey do that? And bing, the answer pops up, and it's the right one. It's the right one, you know?
And what would you say was the biggest thing that you learned at Plessey that you brought across into the woodworking industry?
For me, it's understand your process, finalise it, and if something goes wrong, don't just go off piste, go back and fix the process. So many people say, oh, that's rubbish, I'll abandon that. But all it needs is a little tweak. And if you stay faithful to these processes, they will get you to where you need to go to. Quite often, it's quite amazing when people get busy, the processes that have got them to that level, they suddenly abandon because they think they haven't got time to do processes. Then it all goes wrong. And it went wrong because they abandoned the process. They should have just gone and fine-tuned it and then get back on track.
And it's amazing to see your passion for the woodworking industry. And so that was sparked by working at Sunseeker. Where has that sort of taken you through?
Well, from Sunseeker, I went to a children's furniture company called A-Space. And I was employed then because they were struggling in production. Their lead times were twice the industry standard. Their lead times were like 12, 13 weeks. Industry standard was 6 or 7. So they said, look, if we keep this up, we're going to be in trouble. We've got a massive back order and we can find no way out of it. So I was employed and they basically said, we've got 6 months to turn it around, otherwise we shut it down.
Wow.
So always one for a challenge. I joined the team and we were quite successful. We made a few changes to reduce that. We reduced the lead time in about 6 weeks, I think, by what we did.
How did you do that?
Well, the biggest contribution to that was, apart from small tweaks. One of the things I found is they made for stock. And I said, why are you making stock when you've got customers waiting for their orders? Why don't you just make the orders? So,
like a light bulb.
well, yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. So I said, well, let's sit down and talk about it. At the moment, you make to stock, which ties money up. You don't know if you're making what the customer wants. And it's also slowing down the customers' orders that they do want getting to them. So there wasn't really a difficult decision after that. So we stopped making to stock and started making to order. Now that brings problems within itself because different bits of furniture take longer than others. Yeah. So you've got a lead time which flexes. But we addressed those issues, and after that everything's like 6 or 7 weeks, which is what the industry wanted. And I know this isn't the question you asked me, but this is something that always springs to mind. They had a department, customer service, where the girls were answering calls from clients, and it was chaos because everyone was phoning up saying, where's my order? Where you said last Friday? And those phones rang consistently. It was dreadful, and I felt so sorry for them. After 6 weeks, because we got back on track, the phones hardly ever rang.
Wow.
It was an incredible indicator of the success. So yeah, that was great, and they're still working today as we speak. A-Space is still in existence. That's incredible. Which is a good thing.
What would you say your sort of driving passion is within the woodworking industry?
Helping people to achieve what they want to achieve, because the woodworking industry is full of lots of small businesses. Normally someone who started on the bench, really enjoyed it, wanted their own business, started making cabinets for themselves. Then they got a bit busy, so they employed a couple of other people. Before you know it, they've got a business. Yeah. But the problem is they're a cabinet maker. Yeah. And with due respect, because that's a skill in itself, that's a hell of a skill, they haven't got the business acumen. They don't know about processes, they don't know how to manage the people, they don't know, particularly in some cases, how to work with a client successfully. So I think my big passion is helping those people achieve their goal and taking some of that stress away. And another indicator that I always use is when I meet a new business owner in the woodworking industry, quite often I ask them when there's the last time they had a holiday. Yeah. And it can be several years because they're frightened to stop and go on holiday. Yeah. So I think a sign of success is when that person books a 2-week holiday, you think, yes, we've cracked it.
Yeah. And how, because the way you're describing it, you work in some fairly large companies.
Yeah.
How does that translate to a sort of small guy with 3 employees? How can they learn what you've done and how can you input them?
Well, I think by working in large companies, you learn every aspect of a business, and you take what you've learned in those businesses. What I always say is the ideal company is a company with the efficiency and the resource of a large company, but can keep the family feel. And getting that balance is quite difficult because you tip to one side or the other.
It's so easy to lose that culture, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I try and do is cherry pick. I take the things from the bigger businesses that I've worked for, which I think will work for this company, and bond them together. And I'm very careful of saying, oh, well, it worked for that company, so it should work for you. And check it
here
in.
You are, done.
It might not.
Yeah.
And all the time, you should be talking to the people in the smaller business you're trying to help to make sure it fits in with their culture.
What do you feel is next for you? What sort of unfinished business? What do you feel like you've still yet to achieve?
Well, I envy these people who know what they want. Like you may have said to yourself one day, right, one day I want a business that does this and does that and does something else. And I've never really had that. Okay. But lately I've realised that what my role in life is to help other people get that. Okay. Because all through my life I've had lots of experiences, but I think the one thread that goes through all of them, you learn about people, and then that becomes the most important thing. So I would really like to be part of a role that helps other people achieve success.
That's incredible. And what prompted the change? What helped you get out of the detail and step back and see where you wanted to go?
Do you know, I think one of the things is working from home. When good old COVID hit and we were all locked down, it's very difficult to deal with nuts and bolts when you're just meeting on video.
Yeah.
So I had to step back and think, I'm sure you've heard the old comparison with an owner that either works in the business or works on the business.
Yeah.
It shifted my mindset to working on the business rather than in it.
Yeah.
Because all those people that were doing this stuff, the design, the making, are experts. Well, they don't need me running around saying, you should do this, do that.
They're employed because they're very good at it.
Exactly, yeah. So don't try and think you can do it. So I stepped back and looked at the bigger picture, come up with strategies and processes and ideas, etc., that I think pushed me to adopt that way of working.
Mm-hmm. And what's the next step for you?
Next step for me is, I always think one day we're all laid on our deathbed, okay? And when I'm laid on mine, I'd like to look back and say, if it wasn't for me, that company wouldn't be working how it is today. It wouldn't be what it is in the marketplace.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my role that I played with the rest of the guys and girls, it wouldn't be there. And I would get such a sense of satisfaction. Another way I describe it to myself is when I'm sat on the sofa with my grandson, and he said, "Grandad, what did you used to do?" I want to be able to say something that I feel really proud of, and that would make me proud.
Okay. And do you feel that's yet to come, or do you feel...
It's always yet to come.
It's always yet to come. It's a journey, isn't it? And I'm not too sure whether you ever reach the destination. And I know that I'm a very driven person. So whatever I achieve, I'll be looking to achieve the next. The next.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what do you feel needs to happen to take you to that next step?
Gosh, these are tough questions, Aaron. What do I just think I need to jump off the building and learn to fly on the way down. I think it's just an act of faith.
Yeah. And where do you need to get to in your head to take that jump?
I think I'm pretty much there because I'm quite a strategic thinker and I'm always thinking about, right, I've got to get my ducks in the row. I've got those ducks, they're there, but they're wandering off a bit. But I'm managing to get them lined up.
Yeah.
And it's confidence in my own mind, confidence that I know enough, because I'm not one of these people that will do something that I'm not happy with until I'm happy with it. Because coaching, mentoring, whatever, these people rely on you to deliver a good service. And if you don't, then you affect their life. You affect their, So only when I am now, when I'm totally confident that I'm there, and I am there now. And lately I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm just thinking all the ducks that I had in my mind are pretty much lined up, and it's ready to go.
Fantastic. And so, visualising yourself taking that jump, what does that look like?
What does that look like? Probably leaving full-time employment and just casting your net.
That is a big jump.
And that's a big jump. And, you know, when you get a monthly paycheck, it's a big jump to say, hey, I'm going to ditch that and take this jump. But I feel that the stars have aligned. It's the right place. And sometimes I try to force it. Say, yes, it's time. Yeah. But when it is time, it feels right. You've got to be instinctive. Yeah. And it's an instinct, and that instinct feels very strong to me now.
That's so powerful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can see your passion. You can see I guess it's wonderful to hear you talk about the difference you want to make for other people, and to take the experience, the mistakes, the journey that you've been on, and to share that with other people is fantastic, and it's the most fulfilling job in the world.
It is.
Is being able to say, you don't have to make all these mistakes that I've made.
Exactly. Yes.
Actually, I've made them. I've got the scars.
Yes.
But actually, I can help you get there.
Yeah.
And I can give you that shortcut that gets you out of being a slave to your business, not really having a business, having a job, not being able to go on holiday, not being able to let go, and taking somebody like that and you transform their whole life.
Yeah, exactly, right.
You don't just fix a few things in their workshop. No. You literally turn their life around. You
do, and it impacts on their family as well, because the kids get to see their dad more, the wife gets to see her husband more, they go out together, they have 2-week holidays without him on the phone all the time. It touches so many people. Yeah.
And what would you say to people who are watching this who feel like they're in that situation, in that position of not being able to leave their work is not working for them, but having that fear of taking on something new, taking on a coach, getting that help? Yeah. What would you say to them as they're standing on the edge of their cliff?
Yeah. Yes.
What would you say to them to help them take that plunge?
Well, you only fail when you stop. And if you've got to that stage where you think you need to do something, it's not quite working for you, well, the first thing is you've got to do something, because by doing nothing, it's only going to get worse. Yeah. So, in my personal experience, is doing something is going out and talking to people outside of the business. That could be a coach, mentor, whatever you like. Because what you got to remember, when you're working hard in your business, you don't see what's going on around you. You've got no idea of TikTok and LinkedIn and all this stuff. All you're worried about is getting the next job out the door.
And paying the bills at the end of the month.
Absolutely, and paying the salaries, etc. So take your head out of the business, go and talk to people, because not only will you learn stuff, it's better for your mental health as well, talking to people, because even if you don't learn everything you need, you will get some benefit. It's just about talking to people.
And what would you say is your hardest lesson you've learned in your life?
My hardest lesson, professionally, my hardest lesson. I think some of the things, not understanding myself sometimes, has led me to be very frustrated. And what I've learned, and this was a really hard lesson, because there was a time when I was really stressed. And the thing that stresses me is if businesses aren't moving forward. And you can see it, they're not moving forward, they're not doing the right things. And you think to yourself, do you know what's going to happen if you don't move forward? You don't stay still, you go down. Okay? And I find that when businesses don't want to go forward, I find that very stressful. And that's what I found about myself. So now, instinctively, if I start to feel stressed, I think, what should be happening here? Something's not happening. It's stressing me. What is it? And that's one of the big lessons I've learned about myself.
And what advice would you give to somebody who feels that stress? How do you, because I know when you're in that situation, it's so hard to even think about anything else beyond it.
Yeah.
What word of advice, or what have you learned how did you get yourself out of that?
Okay.
Through into where you are now?
What I did, this sounds crazy, I wrote an email to myself.
Okay.
And I sat there and I wrote it all when I was feeling particularly bad about it. Yeah. So it's the worst case scenario. Yeah. I wrote this email, I left it for 2 days, and I sent it to myself. Okay. And I opened it and I read it. And then I suddenly thought, hang about, it doesn't have to be like this. Some of these things were emotion at the time. 48 hours later, they're not so bad, are they?
Yeah.
And then I copied and pasted it onto a Word document and took out all the emotional things and just left me with the factual things.
Wow.
And I said, right, I'm going to do something about all of these 5 factual things, which I found amongst all of the worry and the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I did. And it was incredibly
That's
powerful.
so powerful.
It is. It is so powerful. And it puts you back in control and you actually sleep then. You know, you don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Worrying about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so that's a technique I use and it
Yeah.
works really well.
Yeah. And so, what one thing about you now would you change if you could?
Blimey, lots of things. What would I change? I think I don't see anything as change. I think I see everything as evolution.
It's a great way to see that.
Yeah, because if it changes, you know, these people who say, well, we do change on Wednesday afternoons. Well, no, you should be evolving every minute of the day.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I found challenging recently, until I sat down and had a word with myself, is how the younger generation coming into the businesses these days work and how their minds work, because it's very different. So that's quite a challenge to me. So I tend to talk to the younger people more and get how they understand things, what their vision is, what their expectations are, what they think's good, what they think's bad, you know, and just understand some of the words they use. But I think that's what I continually do and where I need to improve, engaging in that area.
Yeah, yeah. And taking this a little bit broader and wider to our industry, there are so many people who have sort of taken a business to a certain point and maybe a nearing age of retirement or hoping to retire at some point soon.
Yeah.
There's a new generation of people coming through.
Yeah.
What can we do to safeguard our industry, to ensure that the new people coming through have got what they need in order to take on these businesses?
Well, I think we've got to tap into them at a far earlier age, because being someone who's had to find people to join apprenticeship programs, I know how tough it can be, because everyone at school, when you're at school, when you're fairly young, you don't see woodworking industry or making stuff as an option.
Yeah.
You want to be...
It's not promoted, is it?
No, it's not at all. You want to be a social influencer or a vlogger or something like that.
Yeah.
And digital marketing and all those things, because you don't know about this stuff. So I think, you know, we should be visiting schools and showing people that this is an option, and open days as well. I went to an open day only this weekend to a company near me who makes shepherd's huts.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought, people don't do this enough.
Yeah.
And I met this young lad.
Opening those doors.
Yeah,
and,
come and see it.
Yeah.
And I met this young lad there as a team leader, and he left school and he'd worked there for 12 years. And what an amazing guy he was. He was so proud of what he did. And so, because I kept saying to him, oh, you must have loads of skills, not just woodworking, you must be able to do a bit because of the electrics, etc., plumbing. He said, yeah, I can do all that, that's amazing. And he really loved it. And they were lucky that they tapped into that guy when he left school. So that was probably lucky. But if you make a conscious effort, have open days, go to schools, things like that, I think that's the way to trap people into that, or show them. It's a bit like professional football youth academies. That's why football companies get these people on at a young age, because they grow with them. And can you imagine how powerful that would be? You know, you're talking to them at 13, that's what they want to do. They'll automatically come to you when they leave school. You start an apprenticeship with them. What a great grounding for a career.
Yeah, incredible. And how do we make that happen?
Do something. Contact your local school and say, I'm a business owner, I'd love to come in, do a bit of a career chat, represent my business, and if there's enough interested, I'd love to do an open day. Or do an open day and then advertise it locally, get onto Facebook, Instagram. It's very powerful locally. Every town's got a what's happening in page where you can advertise. And I think that's a very powerful thing. I think it's something we used to do 30 years ago, and then we stopped doing it, these open days. And I think it's got a a real place now again, because again it's tactile, people there, it's not just a video on a screen, and it gives young people the opportunity to talk to the people that are actually doing the job and learn even more about it.
And how do those that are running businesses within this industry, how do they manage to embrace the change and the new culture of the young people who are coming through without feeling threatened by them, and without, because a lot of people in this industry have done the same thing for a long time.
Yeah.
That's the way they've always done it.
Yeah.
How do we as an industry take that next step forward and embrace the new technology, the new generation?
I think because the people side of it's so important, some of these business owners have got kids. Talk to their kids, but listen to them. Because
there's a big difference between talking and listening.
There absolutely is, particularly when it's your own child.
Yeah.
Listen to what they've got to say, and if you're lucky enough to have grandkids, listen to what they've got to say, but get more into that area. Not just Google it. What do the kids of today think about so and so? Talk to them. Because some of those things you won't like. Some of those things you'll think, what a load of rubbish. But unfortunately, this is what the current generation believe. You don't like it, you're uncomfortable with it, but if you don't embrace it, it could threaten your business. You need to understand what they're all about. I was reading an article the other day where they said the biggest thing that the current generation asks for all the time is feedback. And we think, why do you need feedback? Just get on and, But that's fine to take that attitude, but you will lose your audience. So you need to understand why they want feedback, what they're doing with it. Because also, which is a good thing, today's generation want to feel they're making a difference.
Yeah.
So you need to show them, you need to give them feedback of the type they're looking for, and show them how they can make a difference. I mean, in the furniture industry, it's all about sustainability, isn't it? Okay, and how you can make your product so that you can recycle it in 30 years' time rather than just making a new one. Make sure you've got sustainable timbers. There's an awful lot in our industry where people could really feel that they're making a difference. So I forgot what the question was, but that's the answer, Aaron.
No, that's fantastic. And just paint me a picture, just rolling back a little bit of you jumping on this cliff. Where do you see that taking you in the next 3-5 years? What does it look like? You as a mentor, as a coach, helping these people?
Either I plummet to the ground.
Let's say you learn to fly.
Okay. I would like to see it being in a network of woodworkers and maybe other industries, see how it goes, where we can all work together and create strong businesses that people can then feel confident about going on holiday, and not having to work all those hours. Create small businesses which are very sustainable and very robust by networking, having meetings with people. I know everyone says, I haven't got time for a meeting. But if it's the right meeting, you save so much time. And I think it's the lockdown really made us understand that people need people. So I think there's no greater thing you can say than if we made lots of small, strong businesses. I mean, the German economy for decades and decades was built on loads and loads of small, successful businesses, not like 3 or 4 massive PLCs.
Yeah.
And look at their economy. Until recently, it was incredibly strong. And they put it down to, they encourage small businesses to be sustainable and profitable. And I think that's what we need to do, starting with the woodwork industry. Love it.
Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure, and thank you for asking me.
Brilliant.